Welcome to this edition of Labor Vision. I'm Bob Delaney, Executive Director of the Institute for Labor Studies and Research. Labor Vision, a production of the Institute, focuses on topics of importance to working Rhode Island families. We hope you enjoy this evening's edition.
My name is George Nee. I'm the president of the Rhode Island AFL-CIO, and I was asked by the different unions that have been participating in this and the consumer groups to be your MC today. I want to recognize the unions that represent people and the direct support personnel or professionals at these facilities. We have SEIU 1199, the Rhode Island Federation of Teachers and Healthcare Professionals, UNAP, which is the United Nurses and Allied Professionals, and the Machinists Union. So we have a wide variety of unions that have been working in this field for many, many years. I just have a couple of introductory remarks. I'm dating myself, but there was a person who ran for office many, many years ago. He was our vice president. It was Hubert Humphrey. And he once said that the moral test of a government is how it treats those in the dawn of life, the children, those in the twilight of life, the elderly, and those in the shadows of life, the poor, the sick, and the disabled. We have an opportunity with this legislation and this campaign to determine whether or not Rhode Island, our government, is going to be moving up to meeting that moral test of what government should be. For too long, the people who have been working in these facilities and are the customers in these facilities have unfortunately been relegated to the shadows of our community and our government. And we're here to say that that should not be happening any longer. We need to make sure that the people who are working in these facilities and dedicating their professional careers are treated with respect and dignity, as are the people who they are serving. So with that, at this time, I would like to bring up our first speaker, who is Senator Lou DiPalma, who has been a champion on this issue, has been working on this for many, many years, and we thank him for his service, and we know he's going to lead us to victory. Lou.
Thank you very much. So, George, thank you very much for the kind intro, but the thanks go to the folks behind me. I assume most of you folks, or some of you, are in fact direct support professionals, direct care workers. Those are the folks that deserve the thanks. I will be brief. There's some key points I want to get across. The bill for the Senate is right here. I received it yesterday. I have a couple signatures. It will be introduced today. So with the break, with the time, with where we were, the bill exists. My name's on it. Some other names will be on it today. It will be introduced today. I'm going to bring a couple of these boards over and just quickly talk to these. These are ones that I used back in where's the manual?
16.
Thank you, Gina. 2016. Before I even continue on, though, thanks to George from AFL-CIO, Manuel and Patrick from SEIU, Frank and Jim from AFT. If I knew who my machinist folks were, I would thank that person. If I knew who my UNAP person was here, I would thank them as well. Thank you for the work that you're doing. We need you to do more of it to bring this all together. Back in 2016, Gina? 2016, we had a campaign for 15 and 5. We began the campaign for 15 and 5, and I said, as long as I'm here in the Senate, in the State House, and I'm in my 11th year, I serve as the first vice chair of the Senate Finance Committee and subcommittee chair for Health and Human Services. If I say I do this every day and every night, I do this every day and every night. We're going to get this over the goal line. There's not a legislator here, of the 113 are here, that doesn't believe you folks are underpaid and have been underpaid for years. If we think about some of the challenges that are faced with regards to the direct care workers and the individuals, you have high turnover, about 33%, increased training costs for those folks that need to be retrained, and lower quality of care because of the retraining. The wage growth has been stagnant, like I said, going back to 2011, back to even earlier, Project Sustainability, and there's a commission we have on Project Sustainability to figure that out. And if you look behind me, the majority of these folks are men. No, they're all women. So let's talk about what the $15 will do. Improve quality of care to reduce turnover and decrease training costs. It will give them the wages they deserve, and they've deserved years ago. And from a gender equity pay perspective, as I said, this will help address the gender equity pay perspective. There are about 4,000 people in the care of the state with intellectual or development disabilities. How many workers do you think there are? About 4,000 workers in the state working and doing this on a daily basis. The state has set this rate, and the rate has remained stagnant pretty much for many years since about the 2012 timeframe. Back in 2012, George will know this, some of you may know this, if I was to ask you, what was the minimum wage in 2012? Somebody, what was the minimum wage in 2012? Just a guess. $7.40. At that time, a direct care worker was making how much? The average. $10.60-something cents. Over that same time frame, minimum wage is going up. That's a good thing. Thanks for the work of George and a whole bunch of folks to raise the minimum wage to where we are now at $10.50. If we look at what the wage is that's set in state reimbursement models, we don't give you a raise. It's the same rate every year. We've raised it twice. I thank the governor for increasing another wage this year, about 44 cents, if that's what it'll amount to. That today is about, I think, $11, and I forgot the exact number, but it's $12.27 in the rate model. BHDDH is in the process of doing a rate reimbursement model and looking at that comprehensively. It's far too long that this is going on. National folks have said this should be done every 5 years. We're into our 7th year. Our neighboring state of Connecticut just passed in this past session a law, minimum wage for direct care workers for individuals with intellectual development disabilities, in part because of the work of SEIU, to $14.75. The time has come for Rhode Island to do that. The time for us to do this is now, and I look forward to working with all of you and clearly my fellow legislator in the House, Representative Shanley. Our goal is to get this over the goal line this year. We need your help. We need people to say, yes, let's do this, and let's do this now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator, and I know with your leadership in the Senate, we will be successful. Before I bring up the next speaker, I'd like to recognize a number of reps and senators that have joined us here today. On the Senate side, Senator Seveny, Senator Lawson, and Senator Murray. And on the House side, Representative Bennett, Representative Carson, Representative Jackson, Representative Kieslock, Chairwoman Williams, and Representative Kassar. Thank you very much and Representative Donovan. I just wrote that down. And anyone else? Did I miss anybody? How's that? Our next speaker is Representative Evan Shanley from Warwick, and it wouldn't be a press conference without a little Rhode Island story. His parents met working at the Trudeau Center. Now, how is that for a Rhode Island story? And he is now the rep from Warwick and is the lead sponsor of the bill that is put in on the House side. So thank you, Representative Shanley, and the mic is yours.
Thank you, George. As George indicated, I represent the Cohasset, Potawatomi, and Greenwood Manor neighborhoods in Warwick, and the Trudeau Center exists on Post Road and has for the past 50 years, providing services for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Currently, they serve about 1,200 people on an annual basis. And as George said, back in 1981, my father was the maintenance man at the Trudeau Center, and my mother was the assistant manager in the workshop there. where she also served as the vice president of the union. And that's where they met, and a couple other things happened, and I came into this world. But the Trudeau Center has played an important role in my family, because my father, when he was working there as a 19-year-old maintenance man during the blizzard of 1978, he lived a couple miles down the road. On his way home, he stopped in before all the snow hit to see if there was something he could do to help. He hadn't been scheduled to work. They said, "Can you stay with these folks until the buses come to take them away?" And he said, "Sure." So hours passed and the buses didn't come, the snow piled up, and it was clear that no one was coming to get the 19 customers that were left behind. So for the next 3 days, my father, a 19-year-old maintenance man, took care of these 19 people, fed them, made sure they got their medications, and kept them calm. And it was this experience that drove him to become a police officer, where he served the city of Warwick for 25 years. And it was my mother's experience at the Trudeau Center that drove her to eventually come back there 25 years later to be the chief executive officer there for 10 years. So this is an issue that's extremely important to me and to my district, because people like my mother and my father, the work they do is work that demands dignity. They deserve $15 an hour. That's the least they deserve. So I am proud and honored to sponsor this legislation that will get them there over the next 2 years, and they deserve so much more, but I think that this is something we can do and we should do. Like the senator said, we have a moral obligation, and like George said, we're judged on how we treat the most vulnerable amongst us. And this bill is a step towards showing what our priorities are as a society. And I thank you for your time and for the opportunity to introduce this legislation.
Thank you, Representative Shanley, and your leadership on the House side to make sure this happens this year. Our next speaker is a direct support personnel who works at the ARC of Blackstone Valley, Nancy Tumajeski. So let's hear from the person who does the work.
Hello. My name is Nancy Tumajeski, and I have been a direct support professional for 27 years at the ARC of Blackstone Valley in Pawtucket. I'm here today to help with supporting the Demanding Dignity campaign, whose goal it is to help inform the Rhode Island legislature as to why DSPs need a living wage, explain the staffing crisis that we are currently in, and simply to educate them as to what our job entails. Taking care of adults living with developmental disabilities is rewarding but incredibly demanding work. My co-workers and I act as teachers, healthcare professionals for our clients. We are their mentors, their advocates, and their surrogate families. Every day we have to make decisions in our occupation. Some of them are small, but sometimes they are a matter of life and death. As an example, we had one client with chronic pneumonia. We had to determine every day whether to report his condition to our director, a staff nurse, or to call 911 to send him to the hospital. On another occasion, while working a night shift, I heard a client having a seizure in her sleep, rushed into her room. As she came out of the seizure, she stopped breathing. We had to do CPR on her while we waited for help to arrive. Another client who has a high risk of choking requires that someone sit with him every single time he eats anything. He's needed the Heimlich maneuver done many times in the past. We are responsible for administering all types of medication and all treatments, which in any other setting in a job is a job that a nurse does. Last year, a new job task was required of the DSP workers that I work with and myself. There were no beds available anywhere due to the flu epidemic last winter. We were asked to become hospice care providers. All of us on my team immediately said yes. We went about making our elderly clients' last weeks as peaceful and as comfortable as possible in his own bed in his own home. All of these situations are just a small sample of the common tasks that we do on a day-to-day basis in this line of work. I love my clients, but I believe that for too long, Rhode Island has not valued the contribution and work that direct support professionals provide. While we help enrich the lives of individuals with disabilities, we help them in the communities, we help their families, and many of my coworkers, however, struggle to provide for their own families when they get home. Most DSPs earn between $11 and $12 an hour for the vital services and care we provide. In 1991, I was hired at $10.25 an hour, which at that time was more than double the minimum wage. Over 20 years, I make only a little bit more than $2 an hour more an hour than I did when I started. Most of my fellow workers, including myself, have to work several jobs and large amounts of overtime just to survive. Working 60 hours per week drains us, and it impacts our families and our lives away from work. This shamefully low compensation is threatening the quality of care and services we provide. It leads to unsafe levels and staff turnover. At my agency, there are consistently 20 to 25 vacancies posted for DSP positions, many times much more than that. Every year, 33% of our staff quit. This revolving door is bad for our clients who need consistent staffing and to help build relationships. But it's hard to attract and keep people to do this difficult and emotionally intense work when they can make more money at Target or Dunkin' Donuts. Our problem is exacerbated by the fact that Massachusetts, just a few minutes' drive from our agency, has a minimum wage of $12 an hour. And Massachusetts is currently paying a group of comparable caregivers in this field a starting salary of $15 an hour and more. I urge the Rhode Island legislature to increase funding that will phase in a minimum wage of $15 over the next 3 years for direct service professionals. Our state is faced with the crisis in care if we do not begin to make meaningful investments in the DSP workforce now. Rhode Island owes it to the legacy of leading the charge for deinstitutionalization and inclusivity to hear our demand for dignity to individuals living with developmental disabilities and for those who care for them. Thank you.
Well, I think that pretty clearly outlines the history and the problems and the issues we face. Thank you very much, and thank you for all the time you've put in and the people you've taken care of. At this time, I'd like to ask Noelle Saravo, who is the mother of a client at the ARC of Blackstone Valley, to share her thoughts with us.
So unfortunately, my son is not at Blackstone Valley, but he does have Gateways to Change that provides services to him. So Joe is 47 years old, and he has multiple health issues and some psychiatric issues that are all part of the syndrome that he was born with. So 4 years ago, we were told that he had outlived his life expectancy by 20 years already, and at that time, he was in a group home setting. And my husband and I had an apartment in our house that had been my mom's, so we decided that we would take him back home with us as long as we could have support staff. And we have been blessed with some of the most remarkable people, just like the people who are here with us today, who make it possible for me to still go to work, who provide Joe with the care that he needs. They oversee his medication, they oversee some of his hygiene, they oversee some of the difficulties that I'm faced because he doesn't want to listen to me because I'm his mom and he's 47 years old. So these people have a way of persuading him to do the things that are better for him, that will benefit him in the long run, to make healthy choices about food, about where he's going and what he's going to do. And they take such a tremendous burden off my shoulders by doing so. I think about folks who go out to dinner and will think nothing of spending $15 to $20 an hour on a babysitter, or maybe having someone come into their house and do some cleaning for $25 to $30 an hour. Yet, the very people who work on hygiene, often diaper people, oversee their medications, take them to all their activities, and give them the love and attention that they would give to their own family members, are working for wages that are just insulting to what they do. So I am firmly in support of this bill, and I hope that $15 an hour is just the beginning of increasing wages and increments that will help these people to earn a decent living. So often, these the providers of care spend their money on the consumers that they're caring for. So if they're making $12 an hour, you can bet that there's probably $1 an hour that if they look at it over a period of a year, that they're spending on things for these people. Not everyone is as fortunate as my son is. A lot of the consumers have no family to visit them or to support them, and they want an occasional treat. And don't think for 1 minute that these workers aren't the ones that are providing those treats for them, because they are. They're the parents, they're the sisters, they're the brothers, they're the family, and they're the caregivers for them. So please, let's hope that this goes through without any glitches, and that we are on the road to providing more raises for them in periods to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We've also been joined by Senator Felag, who, thank you very much for coming. He's an experienced senator. The other ones all came in, no clapping. He comes in, he gets a big clap. He knows how to do this. Oh, okay. Actually, we have one more speaker who unfortunately got caught up in the line downstairs. So, always good for you to be here. Anna works at the Trudeau Center and is direct support professional.
Thank you very much.
Share your story with us.
Thank you very much. I, much like Nancy, started in 1991 at the Trudeau Center, and present day I am still there. Without being too redundant, we do exactly what the folks of the Blackstone Valley do. We do every part of their daily living skills to we also take our folks out into the community. We provide employment training. We also explore job opportunities on a daily basis for our folks. We teach social skills classes. We teach job training classes. We teach all life skills classes within our building. We do everything, and again, we pass all kinds of meds, narcotics, psychotropic meds, we pass anticonvulsive meds. We, in addition to that, you also have to know what occurs when someone is having an issue and what to look for, and should there be a problem, what is the necessary steps to take. We wear a million hats all day long, we do everything. And again, for the amount of money that we make, when I swipe out at 3 o'clock today, in order for me to maintain my benefits at the Trudeau Center, I have to swipe into a different department and transfer over to community support systems. And I provide services Monday night and Tuesday night after I leave the Trudeau Center. On Wednesday, I have a different job, and I provide respite services around the clock in my home until tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. When I leave the building again tomorrow, I provide another respite service for another individual. I average about 65, some weeks 70 hours a week, just to make my bills to be met. And it shouldn't be that way at this stage of our lives. My family suffers and always has. But I enjoy my job. I love my job. Every day I learn from the folks that I support. They make me a better person, God knows, every day of my life. I learn from every one of them. But please, this issue is so important to the folks that we support and all of the immensely amazing folks that I work with, and all of you and everyone in this room who does what we do. It's so important. Please let this bill pass. Thank you.
Thank you for your commitment and service. That is the end of our formal program. We would be available, the people up here, if there's anyone else who wants to use this opportunity to tell their story or say something, we certainly have that. But I think just in closing, my guess is that we've been involved in a lot of campaigns, and there's a lot of lobbying that goes on at the state. And oftentimes, the effort is to convince a rep or senator to support something, maybe change their mind on something, see a different point of view. I think this campaign is a lot different, and that is, I think if we went through the House and Senate right now, on 113 reps and senators, you wouldn't find one person who doesn't think it's important to do this. However, the issue is not convincing them that it's important and necessary. The issue is, how do we make this, for the reps and senators, their priority, where they go to the leadership and say, this is essential this year that something significant be done. That's the difference with this type of a campaign, and that's where we have to use the stories that are here and the personal the personal stories and experiences of people to make sure that all the reps and senators and all the leadership in the governor's office understand how important this issue is and how critical it is. The biggest takeaway I got from just listening today is hearing that someone went to work at double the minimum wage 20 years ago and is pretty much there still. That's just, in addition to being immoral, it is shameful. And that story and now that information has to move people. So with that, the mic is open. Anyone wants to say anything or any questions?
How much would it cost to raise the wages to $15 in 2 years?
That's a great question for Senator DiPalma. Because this guy knows numbers.
So I think if we think about from a general revenues perspective, how much we would have to do. So this year, putting in $3 million into general revenues will equate to about 44 cents. If we're at $12 now, we need to get to $15, let's assume we're right at 12. In order to get to $3, I need 7.5 times that. So I think in the neighborhood of $25 million to get there.
Over 2 years
Yes,
in general revenue?
correct. Right. By the way, there's a combination of general revenues and match, as you're Gina's asking a question. So if anybody knows about this topic, she knows about the topic. She probably has the answer. She's just asking me to see if my numbers jive with her numbers. But I think if you look at $12 to get the $15, $3 difference, $3 divided by the 44 cents this year, equating to 3, I'm saying 7.5 times that. 7 times 3 is 21. Let's make it an even $25 million in general revenues. That would get us to about that point. But it's the funding model, it's the rate reimbursement model that the state uses, and it is unconscionable. It is just unconscionable. The model has no wage increase on a year-to-year basis. And to hear, as Nancy said, it's almost 3 decades. You said 91, right? 91 to 2019. The one thing we can hold solace in, we did not eliminate any services. We did not create a waiting list. What did we do? The system is built on the back of each of the women right here. We built the system on the back of the workers that are providing the 4,000 workers. There's about 3,200 full-time equivalents, but 4,000 workers that are providing the services to individuals. The system is built on their back. No waiting lists, no cut in services, but we built it on their back, and it's unconscionable that that's occurred. We got to stop it, period.
And I can't think of a better way to wrap it up. That's it, folks. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of Labor Vision. We appreciate your input and encourage your comments. Labor Vision can be seen on this channel 3 times each week, Tuesday at 7 p.m., Thursday at 8 p.m., and Saturday at 5 p.m.